Sup gamers, Randy Potato here with a guide to the Sprawl biome. We'll cover the Sprawl enemy pool, the unique conditions and trinkets found in this region, and how to defeat the region boss, the Librarian. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe and click that join button or sub to my Patreon in the description if you want early access to all my upcoming videos. The Sprawl is the dedicated fire region, with almost all enemies applying burn damage and featuring high burn resist, with the boss himself being essentially immune to burn damage. Some enemies also have a unique ignite mechanic, which heals them and unlocks even more powerful abilities. The Sprawl region is unique in featuring relatively more hoarders, hospitals, and resistant encounters, while having no oases or creature dens outside of special region conditions, and fewer caches, cultists, and assistance encounters. The region-specific trinkets almost all pertain to burn skills, and the two premier indelible trinkets, Snappy Swig and Lightning Element, give powerful benefits to heroes with above 8 speed, making this a great stop if you have a faster team. The Lair Boss is one of the more challenging ones, with multiple actions per round, high DOT, and constant dodge generation. The trophies are fairly strong, either offering you burn damage on crit or giving you 100% scouting. Overall, you'll find dot resist and clear to be fairly important, and fast damage crucial to stop these enemies in their tracks before they can ignite. Now let's move on to the specialized enemy pool. The Flayer is a 12 HP enemy that starts combat with a dodge token and no DBR. They have relatively low dot resists, even burn. These enemies can ignite, though not on turn 1. When not ignited, they have 3 moves. They can slash or stab from the front ranks, with slash hitting the front row with 2 bleed, and stab hitting the back row, both doing 2 to 5 damage. From the back, they can only use advanced lunge, doing 2 to 5 damage, adding a riposte and dodge token, and moving forward 2. The actual riposte damage is another 2 to 5. When they ignite, they unlock 3 entirely different moves, all again doing 2 to 5 damage. Burning Skewer is front row to front row, dealing 2 burn, 2 bleed, and stress damage while adding a riposte. Blade Tornado is a front row AoE, dealing burn and a chance at blind, while adding a dodge token. And Searing Lunge adds burn, while adding dodge and riposte while moving forward 2. Whipper has 20 HP, again with no DBR and the same dot profile as the Flayer. They can also ignite, but not on round 1. Without ignite, they have 3 skills. They have Whip Crack, a front 2 to front 3 attack that does 2 to 5 damage. With Whip Trip, they can target the back 3 from any rank, doing 2 to 3 damage while moving the target forward 1 and immobilizing them. And Fiery Haze can be used from the back row against any target, applying a blind and moving the Whipper forward. When ignited, Whip Crack becomes a 3 to 7 damage ability with burn and daze, and combo with her Ladyship in the party. Whip Trip is the same plus a burn. Finally, he adds Infernal Taskmaster, a full party AoE usable from the front 3 ranks, dealing 1 to 2 damage, applying a burn and chance of stress, while debuffing burn resist. The Shaman is a 12 HP enemy with no DBR and the same resist profile. This is the last ignitable enemy. Without ignite, they can either use Eyes Closed, usable against any rank from the back 3, which adds a blind and stress. Burning Beads is usable against any rank from the front 3, dealing 3 to 7 damage and stress while ignoring stealth. When ignited, Burning Beads becomes 4 to 10 damage and adds a burn and combo with her Ladyship. Infernal Blast is only usable from the front row and is a front row AoE dealing 3 to 7 damage, burn, and stress while moving Shaman back. And finally, we have Blazing Aegis, a back row buff where Shaman heals both himself and a target 20% and adds 2 dodge tokens and guards the target. Sacrificial is a 13 HP enemy that spawns with 2 block plus tokens with no DBR and slightly higher burn resist. Always spawning in the back, they will spend their action every turn moving forward 1. If they reach rank 1, they will use their only attack, a new Sun, sacrificing themselves and dealing 6 to 14 damage party-wide, with 3 burn and 2 stress. Pitfighter is a size 2 enemy with 41 HP 33% DBR, and relatively lower bleed and blight resist. They have 2 actions a round, and starting on round 2 they will use a free action to buff themselves. This buff will give all their attacks 1 burn, and themselves 1 speed. The burn increases every turn, up to a max of 4, while the speed scales infinitely. Pummel is usable from any rank against the front 3 ranks, dealing 4 to 7 damage and moving Pitfighter forward. Jawbreaker is only usable from the front row, against the front row, doing 4 to 10 damage, knocking back the target and dazing them. Immolatist has 16 HP, 25% DBR, and a high 75% burn resist. This enemy can use the Fire Rises from any rank to any rank, which will ignite the target if able, while giving them a strength and dodge plus token. They can also Funeral Pyre if a corpse is present, healing the full enemy party 50% with a chance at a strength token. And finally, they have 2 attacks, Fire Flay from any rank to any rank, which does 3 to 7 damage, and applies a burn and stress. Flaming Lasso is a back row AoE usable from the front 3, dealing 2 to 5 damage and adding burn, stress, and blind. Her Ladyship is the elite version of the Immolatist with 23 HP. She also has Fire Rages and Funeral Pyre, though her Funeral Pyre can also add dodge. She has Fire Flens, in any rank to any rank attack that does 4 to 10 damage, with a 4-point burn and 2 stress. Chains of Agony is a back row AoE usable from the front 3, dealing 3 to 7 damage, a 3-point burn, blind, stress, and a chance of second stress. And finally, if a target is both burning and has a combo token, she can use Combustion from any rank, dealing 200% of the total burn damage as direct damage, while removing the combo and burn. This also ignores block and guard. Now let's discuss the various enemy mashes you are likely to find. The easiest mash is with only Whippers and Flayers. They of course can self-ignite from round 2 onward, so you're still essentially on a timer just like every Sprawl fight, but with a properly kitted team you should eliminate at least 1, and hopefully 2 on round 1, essentially ending the fight. I find the Flayer has a stronger base kit, but with the dodge token I generally focus Whipper first. The constant blind from the Flayer is pretty rough though, so if you have a big DPS like Hellion, then quick stripping the dodge token to 1-hit the Flayer first is probably optimal if possible. Now if a Sacrificial is added to any group, they obviously become the most dangerous potential foe. However, because they are slow and only do something in rank 1, you don't have to focus them at all, and can eliminate the other enemies first, as long as you take care to manage the fight carefully. Track the corpses to know when they will disappear, 3 rounds, and if an Immolatist or Ladyship is in the party, eliminate the Sacrificial faster because they can remove corpses. DOTs are best at dealing with Sacrificial with the multiple block plus tokens. If you have movement, like Rampart, that can also easily keep this foe at bay. One note is to never pick the shuffle option at the encounter screen, because it could move the Sacrificial into rank 1 to nuke immediately. If a Shaman is added, they always become target number 1, assuming you can reach. Being extremely fragile, with 12 HP, but featuring high stress and bleed, and if you let them ignite it will extend the fight multiple turns with the heal, guard, and dodge tokens. Figure out a way to eliminate them on round 1 or start of round 2 by any means, regardless of the comp. Pitfighters are again a huge DPS enemy on a scaling timer. Since they don't actively ignite like other enemies, and as they have quite high HP along with DBR, I generally focus other enemies first. Definitely need to take specific caution though, generally by setting up a tank to absorb the blows while you finish off the other foes. And as with all Sprawl fights, but especially this one, you're on a timer and need to finish this fight quickly and not let the scaling get out of control. Of course, these multiple actions per round means DOTs are quite effective. As with Whippers, having some sort of way to reset your party if shuffled is pretty important as well. And finally, we come to Immolatist and Ladyship comps. These enemies can of course buff and ignite their allies, but also come with some of the strongest DPS of any Sprawl enemies, along with stress, burn, and blinds. They're certainly the toughest opponent in most combats, though not often the first targets because of their positioning, HP, and DBR. Shamans still take priority. In an Immolatist Ladyship comp, I will often eliminate the Flayers and Whippers first, even though they aren't as dangerous, simply because they are easier marks. Getting a quick round 1 kill on these easier targets makes it easier to then move the Immolatist forward. Sacrificials also take priority in this comp in general. However, with Pitfighters, if possible, I'll eliminate the Immolatist first because they end up a quicker kill and they can buff the Pitfighter themselves. One trick I actually like doing is first eliminating their allies and then leaving the corpses as bait, basically. They will often use Pyre, spending their whole turn simply removing a corpse and healing rather than one of their stronger attacks. This gives you time to set up your nukes, heal, and or apply some dots. Now if you're running against her Ladyship, it's a whole nother deal. Their moves are so dangerous that it's rarely acceptable to ever delay killing them. They need to be top priority. The way to clear out combos and burn is quite important too to avoid the combustion. Ordained crits can often one-tap weaker allies, so taunts, blinds, and dodges are quite important. Combat items should be used here if necessary. This can become one of the tougher fights in the game. And now onto the Lair Boss, the Librarian. This boss has 116 HP with 33% DBR and is completely resistant to burn and move. They have 3 actions per round. This is one of the tougher Lair bosses, and most dangerously is essentially on a timer before he becomes near unkillable, usually around 7 or so. So you need to pack high DPS and versatile DPS that can hit any rank, especially 3 and 4. You need some way to deal with the constant dodge spam. Illumination Plus and Tracking Shot Plus work wonders here, as well as the blind tokens, both of which can be countered with combat items. Let's go over the Librarian's setup. At the start of combat, the Librarian will be in rank 4 with 3 stacks of books in front of him of varying sizes. Each book stack will be between 15 and 45 HP, and yes, they can be targeted, though you generally don't want to. With his first action of every round, he will reduce the book stack in front of him to the next 15 HP threshold. This action will add stress to a random party member. If a book stack is destroyed, the Librarian will immediately get a free action where he will use his Burning Bright attack, a full party AoE dealing 3 to 6 damage and applying 2 burn. This will also add a dodge token to Librarian unless they are already ignited. With his 2 other actions, he can use Mandatory Reading against any rank, dealing 48 damage along with a 2-point burn and stress. From the back 2 ranks only, he can use Smokestack on a 2-turn cooldown, which applies 2 blind and a Vaughn to any rank and also gives him a dodge. Also from the back 2, he can use Categorize on an 8-turn cooldown. This is an AoE shuffle that will place your heroes in alphabetical order by class, going right to left. If you manage to get him in rank 1 by pushing the books back, he can only use Burnout, a front row AoE that does 48 damage and 2 burn, while moving him back 2 and giving him 2 dodge tokens. And finally, once he has burnt all the books, he will automatically ignite. When Librarian uses Ignite, he will heal for 24 HP and gain an extra action. Once ignited, the Librarian will use Burning Bright every turn, this time again without the dodge token generation. Obviously, the whole key to this fight is to eliminate the Librarian before he ignites. You obviously can still defeat him once ignited, but between the heal and the triple AoE attacks every round, you generally don't last long after ignition happens. The most important aspect of this fight is to have the reach to dump damage on him while he's in the back row. Hellion and especially Highwayman, but also Vestal and Plague Doctor can be absolutely clutch here. Jester Finale and Occultist Burning Stars are also 2 nukes usable against any rank, and if you're using these skills, you want to stack combat items on these heroes in order to burn through dodge tokens to get a clean 100% hit rate for your nuke attacks. One entirely useless hero is the Runaway, since Librarian can't be burned, which is an interesting dilemma because any burn Runaway comp needs to come to the Sprawl to pick up the burn trinkets. An alternate way of tackling this boss is to use movement. You obviously can't move the Librarian, but the book stacks are easily movable. Rampart is fine in moving the Librarian up if he's already in rank 3, but the best movement skill for this boss is the Leper's Purge. This moves the front book stack back 3. Once safely in 2, then you can just swing away. Keep in mind though that once he burns through the front book stack, that he will then use Burnout, which moves him all the way back and also gives him extra dodge. Thus, most of the time it's better to just rely on consistent DPS that hits every rank. For combat items, my big damage nukers like Jester and Occultist should have throwable combat items in order to ping both dodge tokens and blind tokens off themselves to guarantee hits. You also like one of your fast heroes to bring smoke bombs, to blind the Librarian early, to avoid getting categorized if your team is hurt by the categorization. After this, you want at least one hero, but multiple if possible, to bring some sort of healing. Healing salves work fine, but if you're without a way to remove dots like with the Plague Doctor, I'd also bring some burn heals since basically everything this boss does applies burn. Overall, this fight is always pretty challenging with the dodge tokens and positional restrictions, and you're on a fast timer, but the rewards are quite good, especially if you've got a burn-based team. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day. And subscribe to my Patreon in the description or become a YouTube member for early ad-free access to all my upcoming videos.